Namaste, salam, and a very good evening to one and all, to everyone who has tuned in to our Climate Wisdom Studio. Our aim is to care, share, and inspire. Today we have with us two esteemed speakers, Mr. Mark Ballabon and Sonia Olson. Mark Ballabon is an environmentalist, an author, a philanthropist, and when I'd met Mark for the first time, he mentioned that he fancies people with very unique and meaningful names, while his name is a very simple one. But Mark, when I met you on the 25th, I'm sure and I confirm that you put a mark on multiple people's lives, and I'm really happy to have you here. We also have Sonia, who is the founding member of the Brahmakumari Environment Initiative, and she is also there with us. Thank you so much for coming today. To start with, Mark, just wanted to know a little bit about yourself, your books. I also know that you do a little bit of music, and please go ahead.
Yeah, well, you said I was a philanthropist, and that would be very nice, but I'm actually a philosopher. So my journey really into this whole arena of climate began when I was about 8 years old. And I started wondering about the planet. I started wondering about my place in society. It started very young with me. And one of the first philosophies I learned to do with the climate was from my father, which was, you can't cheat nature. You can't cheat nature. So that philosophy has served me well through most of my life, because anything you do that tries to cheat nature, and obviously we have all sorts of modern technologies like farming, which try to bend the laws of nature, and it doesn't work in the long term. One of the reasons why we have a climate problem. So my journey really has been, I worked in music, I worked in the music industry, got my degree, really I've been a writer and international speaker for many years. But the last 10 years of my life I've dedicated to youth. And that's where my book, Home, My Life in the Universe, comes in. And here I am in the UAE I've been invited by 8 international schools to do talks on the climate, which I call Climate Positive. And it's been going really, really well so far. So I'm really pleased to be here.
We are glad to have you in UAE, Mark.
Thank you.
And Sonia, I wanted to know a little bit about yourself and how the Brahmakumari Environment Initiative began.
Yes, Brahmakumaris is an organization which we are now 80, 90 years old, going strong, and we have done many environment programs through the times, but we haven't had any platform that unified all these projects. So in 2009, the climate change conference, which is now happening in Dubai, was going to happen in Copenhagen. And I run the Brahmakumari Center in Copenhagen. So I thought, well, we should be part of this conference. All the ministers are coming, the whole world is coming to Copenhagen. And as we are an international school, I thought it's a good place to be. But then I thought we cannot only participate in a conference because it looks good. That also means we have to green our own organization. So we actually started 2 parallel projects, you can say. One is to green the whole Brahmakumaris, and the other one is to participate in conferences and make sure that the topic of consciousness, mindset, awareness, change, peace is also brought to the table. So we got a team together, we got accredited, we had our first conference in Copenhagen and it went really well. And people were very surprised. Religion had been part of it for many years, but not many spiritual schools who addressed like consciousness and awareness and mindset. So that was new.
Right. Mark, moving on to you, moving on to the heavyweight question is that we see a lot of people talking about climate change, but a lot of times it happens that it comes out in a very violent manner, that, we read a lot of news these days that people are vandalizing properties, they are, stopping cars on the road, causing trouble. And I believe you had mentioned in one of your writings that we need to feel good about the actions we need to take. So how does these two relate? That, when people are just blaming other people for the problems, how would you tackle this situation? How would you make it your own problem than forcing it on somebody else to change?
Well, firstly, I think it's really important to empathize and understand why millions of young people all over the planet are so angry, are so frustrated. And I really think it's important to understand that, because often they feel that their voices aren't being heard. So one of the reactions to it is to protest against governments, against leaders, against authority, and that you understand. But it's also important, as I teach in the schools I go to have some critical thinking. You have to assess how effective is that. And in one of the scenes from my book, Home, there's an interesting conversation that goes on. And Leah, who's the main character, says, all these protests, all the reaction, what about making a response? A response is very different from a reaction. So one of the philosophies I always have is, don't fight against all that's wrong. You can stand against what's wrong, but then put your feet on the path of what you're fighting for. And that's being climate positive. All the positive things that you can do, starting with yourself. And for me, that's the whole point. Instead of, the pointing fingers and blame, you start with yourself. And there's usually, as I discovered over the last year particularly, so many things that people can do, obvious things. Even the clothes I'm wearing, these are all organic fibers. I know the companies that made them. I support their sustainability ethos. Schools, you can do a kitchen garden, recycling. There are so many things, even how much you adjust the tap when you're brushing your teeth, so it's not a full pelt. So I think that there's several aspects to empowering people, particularly young people, to make a valuable response that's going to be much more effective, things that they can actually do. But the most important thing is this climate. If you do the things you do from anger, from frustration and whatever, the results are going to usually be very ineffectual. But if you do it from a place of self-care, from a place of mutual respect, building kindness, building different qualities, you're creating a whole different climate. Wrong decisions are being made because people are making them from anger or from frustration, or because, frankly, in a lot of Western parliaments, they have such a short tenure. So they don't have a philosophy that goes beyond 3 years. Whereas, for example, the Iroquois nation in Northern America had this 7th generation thinking that every decision that they would make today would have in mind the consequence for the next 7 generations. That's a mindset that can produce a sustainable environment and sustainable products and a sustainable way of life.
Right. Sonia, as continuing from what Mark mentioned, how impactful is COP in such aspects? Because this is going to be my first COP, and I'm very excited for it as well. So you've been, as mentioned, that you've started COP since Copenhagen days. So how has it impacted this thought process?
No, I want to carry on from what Mark said about the blaming first. And I think also we need to understand we all contribute to the pollution. Just by being alive, I contribute, I have a carbon footprint that makes the world situation worse. So no one is free from adding to the pollution and to the global warming just by being alive. So in a sense, I also have to accept my personal responsibility. And when I do that, maybe I can stop blaming, but taking responsibility instead. An opposite of blame would be respect. So I respect everyone. And I try to be an inspiration for people to bring down their carbon footprint, but not to blame them, because I'm part of the problem as an individual. And if I'm part of the problem, then I'm also part of the solution. And where the blame has gone from the heart, what is left is a lot of peace, and it's a very loving heart. And to come into action from that place That's a very beautiful place to be. And when it comes to COP, it's first of all a political conference. It's a conference of parties, political parties. So each government around the world is sending their delegation, normally from the Environment Ministry, to here to negotiate on international rules and regulations and laws. And it's a very stressful situation to be in. Because the people who are here, they have a mandate from back home, and they have the pressure from their colleagues, and they have the pressure from the world press. So I see sometimes on the negotiators, they have 3, 4, 5, 6 phones. And they work from early morning to late evening. And so understanding that situation, of course, it's a very stressful situation. And it's not very conducive to reflection or meditation or personal responsibility at all. So this is why the interfaith community, the spiritual organizations, we try to provide this space to reflect and to be, and to see if that can offer an addition for people to reflect on. I was once in a conference in Nairobi. It was a UNEP, United Nations Environment Program. It was a 5-day-long conference. And I was part of many side events. And the only thing I remember from those 5 days was the opening. And the president of the previous conference was handing over the presidency to the new one. And she said, let's stop for a moment and remember why we're here. And she said, remember your favorite place in nature and go there in your mind and put the feet in the water or sit in the forest. And then we took 1 minute silence. And she did that with thousands of people, all dressed in black suits. And it's a kind of courageous thing to do. But I still remember that, and I don't remember anything else. So we are trying to provide these spaces for reflection and take it home to myself.
I would like to come back to the faith point, definitely, but you mentioned carbon footprint and we have to reduce carbon footprint. And even Mark, in his workshop the other day, he mentioned that we all should make sure we reduce carbon footprint by 50%. So asking the two of you, anybody can go ahead. What is carbon footprint and how do we do it?
Okay, so as Sonia was saying, most activities that we do generate a certain amount of carbon. You know, we take flights, we drive in cars, we buy products that have come from industrial manufacture, and all these generate a certain amount, usually of carbon dioxide, but also other things like methane, which comes from farming, water vapor, hydrofluorocarbons, and all these are greenhouse gases that build up in the atmosphere, and they keep the heat in, so the planet is warming far too fast. In fact, this year will probably be the hottest year on record. It's a really serious situation, and that's why these kind of interviews and this COP28 here in Dubai is so important. So reducing your footprint, firstly, is again what Sonia's saying, is before you get into all the action, there's a really important step to take before you think, well, you know, yeah, maybe I'll buy organic clothes, maybe I'll grow some vegetables. And before you will do all that, it's to do with your connection with yourself. What kind of a person do you want to be? Do you want to be someone who just keeps taking and taking and taking from this planet? Because nothing in nature works like that. Everything in nature is a bounty. It's always giving. Everything gives more than it takes. And the planet herself, she recycles her everything 100%. So it's coming inside, the kind of person you want to be, creating the climate, literally, the internal climate that can allow you to be free to take the kind of choices that will be sustainable. So every little thing that you do, like in the hotel where I am, there's only 3 recycling bins. I'm like on the 32nd floor and they're on the 7th floor. So I go in the lift with all my recyclables. Now I feel good about that. I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone else. So all those small actions added together, you know, there's things in my room that are the 2 televisions. I don't know why. They're both on standby. Unplug them. They don't get added to my hotel bill, but they get added to the cost for the planet. And I love the planet, so I unplug everything that is not needed. So all these things that people can do to reduce their carbon footprint. One other thing I'd want to mention about this, which I think is really important, is in Home, My Life in the Universe, one of the characters is a climate refugee, Tongi, based on a real character. So he's a climate refugee from Chad. And Chad is one example, you know, on this planet. You probably know with Lake Chad, it's become droughted. You know, the warming, the use of agriculture, industry, irrigation, all the rest of it, that lake has shrunk massively. Some say from aerial views by about 90% since 1960. That's absolutely huge because thousands of people depend on that. Now, the thing about it is that the carbon footprint, which is the question you ask, of Africa, of a continent like Africa, which is obviously huge, is actually much less than some of the Western nations. So somewhere in this, there's got to be equity, there's got to be balance in terms of responsibility, because some of the reasons that Chad is like that is to do with pollution, particularly atmospheric pollution that comes in from the West. So I think everyone could be much more conscious of their own carbon footprint and look at all the things that they can do. Because if all those actions added up all around the world, it would make an absolute huge difference, because consumption levels would start to come, you know, I think it was Gandhi who said that, you know, that there's more than enough food to feed the world's need, but not to feed the world's greed. And I think that's what it comes down to.
I like this point about feeling good factor, and you asked about the start of our environment initiative. So in Copenhagen, in the Brahmakumari Center, we prepared for the conference and we prepared for international delegation to come. So we changed all our cleaning products to green cleaning products. Right. We changed all the light bulbs. This is now 15 years ago, so it wasn't mainstream with doing this. And we changed the printing paper. We did so many things. And the whole Copenhagen did it. All the hotels, everyone, wow. Green. It was an amazing time. And then after that, I thought, I will not say anything to the others in the center if we shall continue to buy biodegradable cleaning products. I will just see what happens. So we didn't agree what to do after the conference, only before. And then half a year later, the people there, the team, they continued to buy these organic, ecological products. And I asked, why did you continue? Because we never agreed to. And they say, it just feels better.
Yeah.
So to have anything lasting for a long time, it has to be a feel-good factor somewhere. And this is also where meditation comes in. So I had a friend, you talked about sorting the waste from 32nd, bring it down to 7th floor. And I had a friend in Greece who was very particular about sorting the garbage. And this was before the municipality had offered that recycling help. So he had to drive sometimes or take the metro to get rid of the garbage in various places. But he felt very good about it. But sometimes he put everything in one pot, everything in one bin. And he said, you know, Sonia, when I'm in a bad mood, everything goes in one bin. But when I'm in a good mood, I'm very particular about sorting my garbage. So if we can learn to keep ourselves happy and in a good mood, then these actions, sustainable actions, are more easy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
About the point you mentioned, it just proves that when I change, the world changes.
Yeah, when I change, the world changes. Yeah.
So talking about Brahmakumari Environment Initiative, and I've seen all the projects which is going on.
Actually, when you asked me now just this, I thought this studio is new, Climate Wisdom Studio, Care, Share and Inspire. This is very close to my heart because this is all new. So that's good. I'm very happy to be here with both of you and starting this. And the other thing I also like very much is the capacity building in our centers. So when I visit our centers, I would see who is interested in these topics and help them to voice it and find the right words and find the right activity for that country, that center, those people. So that I enjoy very much. I'm always looking for the green angels, I call them. If I look for green coordinators or coordinators of Brahmakumari's initiative, no one wants to do it. But if I look for the green angels, everyone, so many are interested.
That is very true. Mark, you just mentioned this term called climate refugees, and just yesterday I got to know, it was just a very small stat, but felt too personal, is that around 400 million of people are climate refugees in this world, and this is not just refugees but climate refugees per se. What does it actually mean, and how has that happened?
Well, one of the reasons I called my book Home is to do with this being your home, a safe space, clean space, and treating the planet as your home. Because the more you treat this like a special home, life you were gifted, the more you would treat the planet as your home. And if you treat the planet as your home, you wouldn't want to destroy it. Very simple switch of mindset. Climate refugees are people that have no home where they live anymore. I mean, it's quite devastating to think about it. So one of the most heartbreaking moments in writing the book was because I wrote it about a refugee from Chad, but having done all the research, then I went to the Refugee Council and asked if I could, speak to someone. And finally I got through to someone, because it's not that easy to do. And I read him the text from my book to see if it was accurate, because this person had to leave Chad because of a number of factors, of the violence in the neighborhood, but mainly because of the climate crisis, and their family, who was in agriculture, and Lake Chad was really trying to get through to England, comes into the conversation because, we're one tribe. The human race is meant to be one.
In this situation, I know, you've mentioned empathy a lot, and in your species could be us humans, but we also are the people who have, created this problem. So how do you empathize, with such actions? It's what people are doing.
Well, look, empathy is really important because, there's a chapter in my book called "Your Eyes Only See What You've Taught Them to See." So say you're watching, say one of the people listening here, you're watching TV and you see climate refugees, or you see people on the coast of Calais in the northern France. They're refugees from all over the world, from Syria, from Iraq, and whatever. So one thing is that you can put them in this box and say, well, they're a climate refugee. Can I have another glass of wine, please? And you don't make the connect. And another way, you think, well, we're one human race. We're one tribe here. These are brothers and sisters. I don't want them to suffer. I absolutely empathize and feel for them. They don't need my sympathy. They need my empathy. And my empathy can lead to actions, like I support a lot of charities, including the refugee charities. So there's things that you can do in response that demonstrate your empathy. That would be a short answer, but Sonia's probably got a longer answer.
Yes, please.
No, I read about the word sympathy and empathy, and actually what came to my mind was kindness. And when we participated in the climate change conference in Paris, we used to meet with a scientist from Sweden who's very enthusiastic, and he believed in that technology could change the climate situation back now. It's 8 years ago. So I asked him a question: how come you can always keep so enthusiastic even though all the statistics are going the wrong way? And he says, I believe that technology is scalable and it will fix the problem. And I thought that's an interesting answer on hope. So I asked our sister Genti, who is the head of our delegation, and I asked, what gives you hope in this situation. And she said that the soul is immortal. And I thought that, wow, that's two very different answers, technology and soul, immortal soul. So I thought, this is interesting. So I asked Golo, who is part of our group, and he said, what gives me hope is that our mind and inner world can shape the reality around us. So if we change on the inside, we will be able to change it on the outside. And then I asked Valerian, our other team member, and she said dialogue. And I thought, wow, everyone has something within them that gives them hope for the future and hope to carry on. And I asked myself then, what gives me hope? And this little word, kindness, came. So because if I lose hope or enthusiasm, or I think the world is just too bad place to be in at the moment, then if someone is kind to me or just smile to me or help me with something, well, then I find the motivation to carry on. So this kindness or empathy, it's so important just to carry on and do the right thing. Yeah. And actually talking about cooperation, collaboration is one of the main topics here in UAE, in Dubai. In every statement, in every message you read, it comes back. We have to work together. We have to do it together. Because people realize that no single nation can make a big impact. No single individual can do it. No single religion can do it. We have to work together. And in working together, of course, empathy, kindness, and cooperation is crucial values to have.
Sonia, thank you for bringing that up, because I was fortunate enough to go to the Conference of Youth happening in UAE this year. And in that, there was this one session which was about peace building, but it was all about there are wars going on outside, conflicts outside, and there's so much of violence out there. But there was not anything about the inner peace. And as you also mentioned about interfaith organizations in COP. So how effective and what role does an interfaith organization do in COP? And secondly, is I would like to get an answer to that first, and I'll ask the second question.
As I mentioned before, in 2015, the Pope came out with the Laudatio Si, the Catholic statement on environment, and it kind of changed the whole atmosphere in the political arena, because it was also became a very important document for all the negotiators and all the ministers who were there. And suddenly the faith communities became a little bit fashionable. Okay, we have to act like brothers, we have to work hand in hand, we have to use these values. And suddenly everyone wanted a person from any religion part of their side event and panel. And at that time, it has continued since then, that the topic of ethics, the topic of caring for the vulnerable who are most affected by climate change, justice, and all these topics are actually also deep religious or spiritual values and topics, and they are more and more coming to the forefront. And the interfaith community are voicing that. And we're also setting an example by working together. So you might have two religions who are in conflict with each other out there in the world, but when we work together for the climate, everyone unite. Because the nature catastrophes and the extreme weather events, they don't make a difference from which religion you're from. So we also learn to work together, and therefore we're setting a very good example. Plus, as I said before, providing this space just to be and reflect. Yeah. And now for this COP, there will be pastoral care session for negotiators. That means providing a space for meditation and for counseling. People who are suffering from stress, climate grief, climate anxiety.
Mark, I just remember this one line which you had mentioned to me on our first Zoom call was that the Brahmakumari organization is an oasis of sanity in this madhouse. So I wanted to ask you, and continuing from Sonia's points, is that how much does spirituality help you be mindful for the environment?
Well, instead of opening up a whole conversation about spirituality, because it's one of these really misunderstood words, most of what there is about a human being you can't see. You can't see the words I'm speaking, feelings, instincts, intuitions. The human being is a teeming mass of energies. And one of them is the vital spark of life, which we refer to as spiritual. So there's nothing kind of strange about spirituality. It's endemic to every single human being. And, there are organizations like the Brahmakumaris who seem to have a very clean approach to that. And I think meditation is one of the things it gives oxygen for the spirit to breathe. And curiously, Sonia was mentioning about this gentleman she's spoken to in Paris about technology will solve it all. But he's absolutely right for completely the wrong reason. And that is that it's a bit like trying to create trees for carbon sequestration, some mechanical plastic tree that is going to, absorb. I mean, it is the madness of that kind of technology. All the technologies we will ever need to sort this crisis, we have. You're talking about the mind, talking about the spirit, talking about the instincts, we're talking about the intuition. Those are the technologies that we're born in. And the work I try to do in the field, particularly with young people, is to enable them to be empowered with those technologies so that they have, for example, critical thinking, even about such things as renewable energy. So compare an electric vehicle to a petrol car. You do the comparison, the footprint of the manufacture and the usage of both, and come to your own decisions about renewable energy. So that kind of external technology is extremely limited in dealing with this. This technology is much more powerful because it means that I, for example, as an individual, can make changes in my life that could drastically reduce my carbon footprint more than, having all these technological things that seem to be helping, but they don't, or a lot of them don't. So I don't know if that answers your question.
I did. I wanted to actually add on to that is I believe a lot of youth would be watching us today because you are an inspiration to a lot of youth. And what one point would you want to tell us today to take back?
That's a really good question. I'd like everyone to take away the fact that you are much more powerful than you think you might be, because you have the power of choice. It makes humans unique. As far as we know, amongst all creatures on this planet, we have the gift of consciousness. And part of that gift of consciousness is decision making. And I would want to feel, it's a bit like, I have to say, Greta Thunberg, that no one is too small to make a change or to make a difference. And I really believe that's true. And I believe that the power of each individual to affect change is absolutely huge. And then, as Sonia said, actually doing that together, which is much more fun. So, you can, like if you're in a school, you can create an eco group. If you're doing work, as I do in the local community, you can do something for the local community, even if it's tidying up the street where you live and just recycling bits of rubbish that people have. All those kind of things are incredibly empowering. But it always comes back in the end to why you do what you do. You do that because you do it anyway, not to impress anyone, not to prove yourself to anyone, but because that's the kind of person that you want to be. I do all the things that I do, not because I couldn't think of buying, for myself, buying clothes that I didn't know where they come from, who manufactured them, what material are they made of. It's just very natural to me. So I hope they go away feeling much more empowered about this.
Definitely. And Sonia, if I may, this is a more personal question, is that, you're attending COP28 this year. What would you like to take back from COP28 for yourself, not for the organization or not the projects, but for yourself?
Oh, now I'm more thinking what I would like to give to COP rather than what I would like to take back from COP.
I think that's even better, yes.
I would like to give. You asked one question before also what my personal change is and what I personally want to change at the moment. And I think actually to meditate more is what I would like to work on at the moment. And that's connecting to simplifying my life, to make my life more simple, because it's a very complex world. And to simplify your life is to go against the mainstream, who is becoming more and more complex. And when I simplify my life, also meditation is easier. And in meditation, I find the strength to live by the values that I've decided to have for myself. And when in meditation, I can see this intricate network of that everything is connected and that my thoughts actually affect the climate. So if I want to like to give anything to COP, it's to give this understanding that what you're thinking in the far end will affect the climate. So therefore I have to be very careful what I think.
Surprisingly, it's a tradition in the Climate Wisdom Studio that before we end, it's always going to be a guided meditation. So, meditation is in one hand, the climate is on the other. We can, bring that together. And if you could, help us with a guided meditation for the climate today.
Okay, yes, okay. So let's sit together. Take a moment of silence. Everyone watching online, everyone here in the room, everyone in the world. We take a deep breath. We breathe deeply and relax. Relax the whole body. And when breathing deeply, I can feel gratitude for the air and for the oxygen I'm breathing, which give life to the body. When breathing deeply, I also realize I'm breathing the same air as everyone else on the planet. The planet's resources connect us all. We eat the food, we breathe the air, we drink the water from the same planet. And that fills my heart with gratitude. And let's turn the attention within and focus on our inner climate. I find a place within that is peaceful. Somewhere within the soul, there is a peaceful corner. And I stay there. And I relax. And I remind myself that being comes before doing. even though I'm just one person out of 8-9 billion people, my thought matters, my decision matters, my lifestyle matters. So therefore, decide to remain a peaceful, loving being as much as I can. And I take a deep breath and come back. Om Shanti.
That was very powerful, Sonia. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mark and Sonia, for being here today. It was very insightful, very thought-provoking, and I'm sure all the listeners would have taken a lot back today. And that is a wrap of our Climate Wisdom Studio session today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.